There we go. Alright. Hey everyone, welcome back to I Love Cinema. It is episode 25. It's Thursday, 8 p.m. You know what that means, right? So let's just have a look whether everything is running, and then we're going to dive straight into the news. There's not actually a lot of news to report today, which is kind of funny. I think I only have like 3 or 4 news items. So it should be interesting to see what will happen next week, because this week was kind of like not much going on. Okay, so it looks like we are live. Welcome, welcome, welcome. It is 8 p.m. in the UK, and if you've ever seen this before, you know what that means. It means, yes, we are live. It means that it is time for I Love Cinema. So today, if you follow me on Twitter, you've already seen what movies I'm going to be talking about today, what movies I'm reviewing today. I'm not going to give it away, so hello, you have to find me on Twitter so that you know exactly what's happening. I always tease it on there. No, mate. No. And I also don't like the N-word, so I'm not going to be talking about that. Let me dive straight into the news. Not really much news going on, like I said. But if you know director Paul Feig, he has recently done the, I would say now infamous Ghostbuster reboot, the ladies version as some call it. He's revealed that his potential sequel to that film would have gone international. He's recently talked to Coming Soon, which is a website, I think in the States. They have a podcast or something going on. And he revealed his plans for the now seemingly unlikely sequel, considering the movie didn't do very well. And he said, I definitely wanted us to go to another country, because when we were doing the press tour, the international press tour, every country, the reporters would come up with these drawings or artist renderings of the country's ghosts. And every country has these really wild ghost stories and ghost characters that they scare kids with or keep people in line with. I really love the idea of the Ghostbusters going to something like Asia. Yeah, so there's a lot of fun stuff that we could have done. That's what Feig said, sorry. It's a bit annoying because I actually quite like the idea, because every country has their own little like folklore and ghost stories, so it would have been really interesting to explore that. But considering that the Ghostbusters reboot didn't do very well at the box office, it's probably not going to happen, which is quite annoying, because I'm not a big fan of the reboot, but I thought it was a decent film. I don't really want to compare it to the original Ghostbusters that was, I think, in the 80s. I love the first one. I'm a huge fan of that. I still remember the first time I ever watched that on VHS as a kid. So it was really, really great film. I enjoyed the reboot, but it felt like it was trying to do too much, like going to extremes in the wrong way, which was a bit annoying. But I love Melissa McCarthy, and I love especially Kate McKinnon. I mean, I've been raving on and on about The Spy Who Dumped Me. I always want to say The Spy Who Shagged Me, but that's Austin Powers, isn't it? And Kate McKinnon is great, and I love seeing her in films. I haven't seen all the films that she's made recently, but The Spy Who Dumped Me I really thought was funny, even though I went to see it a second time, and it was not as funny the second time around, probably because I'd been hyping it up in my head, because I loved it so much the first time I watched it. And then I went and saw it again, and I was like, you know, it's a decent flick, but it's not actually that great. That there were some technical audio issues probably didn't help either. But going back to Kate McKinnon, I thought she was one of the standout performances in Ghostbusters, the other one being Chris Hemsworth. Very surprised. I didn't know how funny that guy was. If you've seen that was obviously before the third Thor came out, and the third Thor, I think, is as amazing as it is. First off, because Taika Waititi was directing it, right? So Taika Waititi is just amazing and bonkers and bizarre and weird and awesome. But also because they let Chris Hemsworth be more funny, have more fun with the role. And I thought that worked really, really well. I enjoyed that a lot. And he did the same thing in the Ghostbusters reboot. And some of the funniest bits and the best bits in the entire film are to do with Chris Hemsworth's character. But I also like Kate McKinnon. She's really good with like the little, you know, just like little looks and little wink of the eye, or just the weirdest shit. She just makes it work. But it looks like we're not going to get a sequel. I have to admit, when it comes to Paul Feig, some of his films I really like, others not as much. I also really enjoyed Spy, which is another Melissa McCarthy film. Given how Happy Time Murders is tanking at the box office and reviewing really, really badly at the moment, it's just come out, I think, a week or two ago. It's unfortunately not a very good film. I love Melissa McCarthy, and I feel a bit bad for her that she's very hit and miss when it comes to movies. She can either give us a really good comedy, like Spy, that I thought was hilarious, and I mean, it also got Statham in it, but she either has like a proper hit on her hand or a proper dud. There's just nothing in between. She's very extreme when it comes to the movies that she makes, apparently. But Feig has a new film out called A Simple Favor. I think it comes out in 2 weeks or something like that. It stars Blake Lively and Anna Kendrick. I'm going to check it out next week because there's like a preview screening that we get to see at Cineworld, so I'm really excited for that. The trailer looks amazing. I'm really excited for that. I've heard of the first few reviews trickling in from the States that were a bit mixed, but overall I'm really excited for that. It has 2 female leads in it. Feig is it Feig or Feig? I have no idea. Paul, can you let me know? And yeah, so it's a bit sad that obviously we're not going to get a Ghostbusters reboot sequel. Wow, Ghostbusters reboot sequel. Not just a Ghostbusters reboot or a Ghostbusters sequel, it's a Ghostbusters reboot sequel. Jesus. But we're probably not going to be able to see that. Thank you very much for the hearts. We're probably not going to see that because, you know, studio heads, they just go by how much money are we going to make, and unfortunately it didn't make a lot of money, which is quite unfortunate. It's not that bad of a film, I thought. And I think it was more of a backlash of people that just didn't like the idea of an all-female Ghostbusters, that they made it a reboot. It didn't have to be a reboot. They could have just, I don't know, there's probably some Ghostbusters in every city on the planet. They could have just had one in LA or San Francisco or somewhere else, like in a really tiny town in the middle of nowhere. How amazing would that have been? But they did what they did, and it unfortunately tanked. Now on to bigger news. I think this is probably the news of the week, also considering that it's like a really tiny week when it comes to news. Henry Cavill, who is currently starring in the latest Mission Impossible opposite Tom Cruise and doing a really good job at that. Like, I'm a huge fan of what he's doing in that role. He's also, his most famous role and what made his career pop and just everything is that he is Superman, right? In the DC universe, he plays Superman, and he has since, 2013 or something as Man of Steel. And then he's been in Batman vs. Superman and the Justice League in the smaller roles, but he is a really good Superman. Even though I'm not a fan of Man of Steel, but he's a really good Superman. Now, after playing this iconic superhero for 5 years, he's apparently hanging up the cape. He will no longer be playing Superman. The Hollywood Reporter is reporting that apparently Cavill is parting ways with Warner Brothers, who is the studio behind DC Universe. After negotiations with him fell through, he was supposed to potentially make a cameo appearance in the new Warner Brothers movie Shazam, which is about another superhero. I've recently seen the trailer, and I'm like, man, that it looks like a kid's movie, like a kid's version of a superhero movie. I didn't find it very appealing, but I know a lot of people go like, they're making a Shazam movie, it's going to be amazing. You know, whatever floats your boat. Judging by the trailer, I have zero expectations for that, and I'm just like, it feels like the not R-rated Deadpool, the first Deadpool, of which I'm not a big fan. It feels like it's just going to be for like 6 to 12-year-old boys or something like that. So, But his negotiations for the film apparently fell through. And after the contract talks between Cavill's reps and Warner Brothers broke down, that eventually spiraled into them talking about Cavill leaving the role of Superman behind. And so there will be no future Superman appearances in any DCU films for the next few years, by the sounds of it. Cavill will not be playing it, so they're going to be recasting it. There was a rumor that maybe Michael B. Jordan is going to be it, and that would be interesting. And I was like, wait, a black Superman? But apparently there is some kind of comic book out there where in an alternate universe, an alternate reality, there is a black Clark Kent who also is the president of the United States, which is kind of cool. So, I mean, I'd probably watch it. But they're benching all the appearances by Superman in DCU films now. Warner Brothers apparently is focusing on Supergirl, which is interesting because it sounds like the best received and the film that made most money at the box office, as far as I know, in regards to DCU, is Wonder Woman. So maybe Warner Brothers is trying to cash in on that and go like, okay, well, we can't have Superman now, forget about Superman. We've got Supergirl lined up, let's see how that does. We'll see how it goes. And then also Henry Cavill posted something on his Instagram, and I'm not entirely sure what that meant. But yeah, he is no longer Superman, according to the Hollywood Reporter. However, it sounds like neither Cavill's camp nor Warner Brothers have officially confirmed that he's out as Superman. So at the moment, all we've seen is that the Hollywood Reporter is reporting that, whether it's not being confirmed by either camp. So take that as you will. And now, the big news that kind of shocked me, but also not really shocked me, and kind of reaffirmed me in the way that I do things, and whatever. I'm a huge movie buff. I mean, I do this show because I love talking about movies, and ideally I would like to talk with other people about movies, but so far I'm working on my listener account, or watch account, or whatever we're gonna call it. And so for me, obviously, it's a really big thing to own or to have access to the films that I like to watch. So I have like a bunch of Blu-rays, a bunch of DVDs lying around. I've got a bunch of digital downloads and stuff in the cloud, and And now I read that only Apple apparently, Apple can delete your digital movies whenever they want to. Whenever they want to. You bought them, you purchased them online in the Apple Store, in iTunes, and they can delete them whenever they feel like it. I kind of like having things digital or, online, and just like at the push of a button, I can just watch it instead of having to go to the shelf and sorting through like stuff and finding the Blu-ray or the DVD that I want to watch and popping it into a player and blah. Instead, you just turn it on and you press a button. But then, searching through stuff and accessing it probably takes about the same amount of time. But a website that I follow called /Film, they've reported that there was a user who apparently had 3 movies purchased in the iTunes store. And all of a sudden they had vanished from his library. They had vanished from the entire store. So not just his personal library, but he couldn't even go back into the storefront, locate the title, and re-download it or just watch it online or whatever it is. And so he inquired with customer services, and he was told by Apple that the content provider, so not Apple, but the actual provider of that particular file, of that particular movie, had removed these 3 films, and that Apple and iTunes is only a storefront for content provider to put content up. So they're only giving them a platform to basically showcase their material, which you then can choose to buy or not, or to rent or not. So it turns out, and on the one hand, I sort of already knew that, but then I'm like, here we have it in black and white. When you're buying digital media, when you're buying a digital version of a film, of a song, whatever it is, you're not actually buying the actual file. You are buying a license to use that file, to use that song, to use that film, as in play it, watch it. But you're apparently not buying a license in perpetuity, but you're buying a license to view this content and use this content for as long as the content provider chooses to make it accessible to you. Now, what happened in this particular instance is that 3 of these movie purchases were, they vanished out of the person's account. And Apple customer service were like, well, here are 2 vouchers for 2 other movie rentals that you can make. And the person was like, I'm not interested in movie rentals. I want those 3 movies back. I bought them. And now they're gone. And the user no longer has access to it. They've just lost them, and as far as I can see, and from what I understand, is also there was no one told them, by the way, in like 2 weeks' time we're going to be taking this content down. Not that that would make much of a difference, because what are you going to do with it, right? It's not like you can I'm not sure. Can you download? Yeah, you would probably download it from the iTunes store, but then as soon as you want to play it, it cross-references with the cloud and would probably delete the thing. I don't know. It's really annoying, and I understand what the particular user is going through, because that would really piss me off. It's not just that you forked out money to buy something that you think you will have access to whenever you feel like it. Obviously, as long as you have internet connection. But if it's like someone coming into your living room and taking 3 of your Blu-rays out of your shelf and running off with them and going like, they're mine. You no longer have a license to use them. I was like, excuse me? So that is the main difference between having an actual hard copy of a film or whatever other potential digital media, as opposed to just having the digital version that sits on a server somewhere. Now, it'd be different if you buy the digital version and you could download it and it is not associated with your online account or something. I mean, this is like this huge, long discussion that I always have with people who are saying, it's like, just rent it on Amazon, just get it on iTunes, get it on Apple, whatever. Just quickly pay like a $5 and you can watch it. It's like, yeah, but if I pay a $10, I actually get to take it home with me and I can watch it whenever I want, whether I have internet or not. And no one can ever take it away from me. Whereas, as you've seen here, content that's in the cloud is not in your control. You've paid for it, but someone might just decide to remove it. It's like with Amazon and some of the ebooks, all of a sudden they're gone. And sometimes they don't even reimburse you. They're just like, well, this title is no longer available. It's like, well, I bought it. Well, it's no longer available. And sometimes they credit you back and whatever it is. But it's not even about the money issue. It's more about, I bought this for a reason because I want to have it. I want to own it. I want to be able to access this whenever I feel like it. And you have just taken it away from me. So I think that is really shoddy. And it kind of reaffirmed my belief in not buying films digitally anymore. The digital versions I have are just digital codes that I put in that come with Blu-ray versions of a film. So I'm not too bothered about it, because if I want to have a movie, I just go and buy a Blu-ray. But it's interesting how these things work and what the actual legalities are. So be careful if you think that you're buying something online, like a digital version of a film or of a song. You're not actually buying it. You're just renting it. It might be for years, but sooner or later, whoever gave you this content and whoever sold this content to you, the license for it, they can take it away from you at any day. So just keep that in mind. And now with that is actually all the news that we have. I want to dip straight into the first of the 3 movies that I want to talk about tonight. And that is the Miseducation of Cameron Post. And actually, before I go into that, let me just quickly check something, because I forgot to retweet the tweet. Which doesn't make it easy for my followers to find me on Twitter now, does it? So let's see what's happening. Sorry, my computer is slow as well. I was like, I'm not going to bore you with my computer problems again. And here we go. Just a second. Oh. Hope this works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. Okay, so on to the Miseducation of Cameron Post. I've been really looking forward to seeing this. It kind of snuck up on me. I was like, I knew that this film existed. I knew that it was at Sundance and stuff, and I was really excited. I heard really good things about it. And then I didn't really know when it was released in the UK. And then last week I was like, hang on a minute. It's being released in a few days. Are we getting this? And yes, we did. So I went and saw it on Friday. It stars a really great young actress called Chloe Grace Moretz. If you don't know who she is, you've probably seen Kick-Ass. She was Hit Girl in Kick-Ass, and she's done a lot of films since. And she's just always a really, really subtle yet powerful performer. I really like watching her. Now, I know that she, as far as I know, she's not personally gay. She's not a gay actor, but she's got 2 gay brothers. She's a gay advocate. This movie, why I'm talking about gay, is this movie is about gay conversion camps. And the character of Cameron Post, who is played by Chloe Grace Moretz, has to go to a gay conversion camp. So, as I mentioned in Atomic Blonde last year, if you've listened to my podcast, The Weekly Watch last year, I was talking about that movie then because obviously Charlize Theron and Sofia Boutella were supposed to be playing characters who are having a relationship. And as far as we all know, both of these actresses are straight. And I'm personally gay, and I'm usually quite disappointed that when straight actresses are trying to portray gay characters, because they usually don't go for it, not authentically, when it comes to kissing scenes, make-out scenes, sex scenes. Now, in the instance of Charlize Theron and Sofia Boutella in Atomic Blonde last year, I was happily surprised that both of these women did a fantastic job, and it was so believable that I told all my friends about that. It's like, I don't care whether you didn't want to go and watch Atomic Blonde. Trust me, you'll want to. And they did, and they thanked me later. And the same is kind of true here with the Miseducation of Cameron Post. Now, Chloe Grace Moretz, as far as we know, she's not gay. Not that that really matters, because like Sofia Boutella and Charlize Theron, I think it's Theron, Charlize Theron, she does a remarkable job at playing a young gay woman, a teenager, who, in addition to just, being gay, as we can see, Chloe, she looks quite feminine. She has long blonde hair. She's got, perky lips and everything. Everyone thinks that she's absolutely gorgeous and beautiful and, drop dead gorgeous, brilliant, right? Everyone's crushing on her, basically. But what she does in this film, and I'm not sure, I've not read the source material, but what she does is she plays a character, Cameron, which is the name itself already is a bit ambiguous in regards to it can be used for a female and for a male. And she is playing a girl that has a lot of male energy, the way that she walks and the way that she comes across, you would never consider her butch, but she is definitely, and I wouldn't even say androgynous either, but she has a lot of very strong male characteristics in her personality as well, and in her physicality, not just because she plays sports. But it was quite interesting to see a character that looks like her, which could be quite femmy. Like if she wore different clothes, people would easily say that she's femmy, she's straight, and then you put her in the clothes that she seems to be comfortable with, which mostly seems to be a tracksuit and a jeans jacket. And she just comes across as having a lot of male energy, which is something that I can't remember portrayed in the cinema, unless I go to specific film festivals that are for the LGBT community. But I've never seen a mainstream film, and this to me, even though it has limited release, is a mainstream film. It's an official release, an official Hollywood release, even though it is an indie film. But I've never seen someone like that portrayed in cinema, especially not as the lead, and that I thought was really fantastic. Now, The Miseducation of Cameron Post is based on a novel by Emily Danforth, and the story follows Cameron, played by Chloe Grace Moretz, as she's sent to a gay conversion camp. I don't want to call it a therapy center because it is a bloody camp, and they talk about something called SSA, which is same-sex attraction. And it reminded me of SS and the Third World War. The Nazis didn't like homosexuals either. Not a lot of people liked homosexuals back then. But there's still a lot of people who don't like homosexuals nowadays, so there we go. And it's really interesting to see the story that Cameron, the events that Cameron has to go through. So she's being sent there to this camp because she got caught making out and having sex basically in the backseat of a car on prom night, and it wasn't having sex with a boyfriend that she was there, you know, her beard, but her best friend Casey, played by what was her name, Quinn Shepherd, and they're caught by her boyfriend, and then everything just goes to hell in a handbasket, and she's getting sent to this conversion camp, and that is run by strict Dr. Lydia Marsh, played by Jennifer Ailey, and her brother, who's a Reverend Rick, and he is an example of how people that have gone through this program at the camp can actually be cured. So he used to be a homosexual. He had SSA, same-sex attraction, and his sister, Dr. Lydia Marsh, cured him, which is why this entire camp has been started, right? He was the first, and now they're trying to, there's lots of parents and other guardians that want their gay kids not to be gay. So in that face of intolerance and repention and denial and everything, Cameron meets fellow sinners, you know, other homosexuals, and she, for the first time, she's around people that are like her, like literally surrounded by people that are like her. Obviously Casey, who she was having this not affair, but this fling with, you know, when she got caught, her best friend, she was the only other person that she seemed to know. And the film takes place in 1993, which obviously is quite a long time ago. It's 25 years ago. The world was a different place then. Or was it? Because nowadays these things still happen. So this film is very timely, and it was quite interesting to see how they depict sexuality, because there's a Lakota boy who is in the camp called Adam, and he is a Lakota two-spirit, which means that he has, I'm not explaining it properly, so the best thing is if you watch the film, but he has female and male energy or something, and I think we all do, and one is ousting the other, one is stronger than the other, and unfortunately it looks like the female one is stronger, and his dad does not like that the female one is winning. And Cameron also meets a girl, a stoner amputee girl called Jane, who is the girl in the middle. So together they're kind of like the three rebels, so to speak, who don't really fit in, who don't really want to conform. And they go through this whole conversion program, and that is what the film depicts. And it is just done in such a beautiful way. It is absolutely ridiculous. Like, this film, obviously, if you're gay, then this film might trigger several times. It triggered for me several times during a bunch of scenes where I had to use all the power I had to not just start sobbing uncontrollably in the cinema. There's some really powerful stuff in there. It's absolutely beautiful. What Chloe Grace Moretz does with this character as Cameron is absolutely amazing. It's stunning. So subtle and so nuanced, because most of the time she doesn't talk much. She's like a Clint Eastwood character. She doesn't talk much. She listens and she reacts, and that she's got big eyes, as you can see, you know, those are just her facial features. And she uses that to the best of her abilities, and she's just fantastic and so grounded in everything. And one of the things that I really liked about the film is that the people who are running that conversion camp, even though they are kind of the villains of the film, they're not necessarily depicted as such. Because you can kind of understand, and they say that several times, and through their actions I can almost sort of see that, that they think that they're doing the right thing. They think that they're trying to help. They think they are helping these kids. Now, of course, it's a Christian conversion camp, so everything's like based on the Bible and stuff. Just like any of the gay conversion camps that you might have heard of in the news or read somewhere. These things are still happening today, even though this is timed in 1993, and it does feel like a period piece. It's really crazy. The problem is that this stuff is still going on nowadays, And that is why I think this film is so powerful. It's kind of like Get Out and Black Klansman for the black community. The miseducation of Cameron Post is the same thing and just as powerful and important to the gay community, because this is a historical piece. However, everything you see depicted in here still happens today, just like in Black Klansman. And that's what makes it so profound and so powerful and kind of like shocking as well. Some of the stuff that happens in it is just absolutely atrocious. So they're trying to basically brainwash these young people into not being attracted to the same sex anymore. And it's kind of funny because when she arrives there, there's obviously not a lot of space, so everyone has a roommate, right? And because it is, they're young, they're basically kids, right? I think she's supposed to be 14 or 16 or something. No, if she went to prom, would she be 18? Because I know in the book she's supposed to be 12, but that's not actually, I'm not sure. I'm actually not sure how old she's supposed to be, but Chloe, the actress, I think is like 20, 21. And they shot this like 2 years ago, so there you go. I think she must have been about like 16 or 18. So Cameron is what I'm talking about. And some of the stuff that happens there is, it's really, really mind-blowing. Because they shot this 2 years ago, during the time when Trump was elected president. And there was an interview with Chloe not too long ago where she was mentioning, it's like, yeah, we were all getting together. We were shooting the film. We were all getting together just to watch the results of the election. And we all knew that obviously Hillary was going to win. And then that didn't happen. And we were in such a shock. And then the next day, when we went back to work, when we went back to filming, we all knew, we all understood how important this film is that we're currently making. I mean, we knew that it was really important before this, but now we know how much more important it is that we need to get this message out. And obviously, if you're paying attention to like current stuff that's happening, gay conversion camps are getting stronger and stronger in the States, and not so much here, but in the States it is getting absolutely ridiculous. And high-profile politicians that are in power are trying to make this happen, which is why this film is so important and why everyone, I think, needs to go and see it. Because even if you don't have gay children, or if you're not gay, or if you don't know anyone who's gay, you need to be aware that this shit is happening. We are basically telling people that the way that they are is not okay. We're sending them away into the middle of nowhere where they are being brainwashed, literally brainwashed into conforming to how some parts of society wants them to be. You know, people have problems with Scientology and with other cults where people are being brainwashed into believing all kinds of shit. Why do they not have more problems with gay conversion camps? Because it's exactly the same thing. But one of the points that I made earlier is that the film is so well done and the script is so well written and the performances are that great that the so-called villains are people that you can understand. Like, obviously, I am siding with Cameron right from the get-go because I am a gay person. But I think even if you're not gay or you can't relate to this, Cameron is clearly the avatar for the audience. She's clearly the person we're supposed to be identifying with. So I think it's not a stretch to go that everyone's going to be siding with her. There's hardly going to be anyone siding with the people who run the camp, going like, yeah, you should, I hope you succeed in you know, changing her and stuff like that. And there's some interesting bits that the film is really heavy and really tragic, but there's also a lot of really great stuff in it. Overall, I thought it was very life-affirming and very positive, even though there's a lot of stuff that happens in there. And if I go and see it again, I would probably be sobbing uncontrollably. Because there just are certain trigger scenes in there that just, I mean, everyone's different, but I think that there's definitely stuff that happens in there where you're just like, even if you've not been in a gay conversion camp, and fucking hell, I have not been, but there are scenes that will just make you lose your shit. And they have something where you arrive at the camp and you get the outline of an iceberg. They're talking about how an iceberg works, that 1/3 of the iceberg is above water and 2/3 of the iceberg is below water, and that they're at the camp, they're trying to figure out why you're gay, why you have SSA, same-sex attraction, right? And they try to figure that out. We see the 1/3, the upper bit of the iceberg. We're trying to figure out what the lower 2/3 are. And so everyone has to fill that in their iceberg. What's in your iceberg? And for a lot of people, it is like, I don't know, I bonded with my dad over sports, which is why I turned more masculine. Or I'm playing sports, or I got confirmation that I'm awesome because I succeed at sports or something like that. All I can think of right now are sports, but there were other examples as well. And everyone has like their own little iceberg, their own little reasons that come out in therapy, or supposedly come out. A lot of it is just bollocks. And then there's also I was talking about the roommates, that there's not a lot of space, so everyone has to room together. And it's all about SSA, and yet these are kids, so they have to, that's where the tangential thing happened, because of the age. They're all kids, right? So they have to room together. But you are having 2 girls room together, and you're having 2 boys room together, because you can't have a girl and a boy rooming together, right? Because that's just unacceptable. But given they have same-sex attraction, isn't it the other way around? So it's just really funny that they have that kind of understanding that you can't have a boy and a girl sleep in the same room together, because that's just undoable. That's just not done. But you have 2 women sleeping together, sleeping in the same room, and 2 boys sleeping in the same room, while they are at same-sex attraction conversion camp. It's like I'm trying to get rid of my chocolate addiction, and I sleep in a room filled with chocolate. Not just any chocolate, but like Swiss and Belgian chocolate. You know, it's just really. So I thought that was quite interesting. But yeah, brainwashing by a cult is what I was talking about. One of the really gut-wrenching things is, and that has to happen, that no matter how strong Cameron is, and she is a very, very strong character, she knows that she's gay, and she knows that there's nothing wrong with being gay, even though she is hiding. The film opens, and I thought that was really powerful, because it was like, I'm not easing you into shit, this is what it is. The film opens with Cameron and Casey coming home to Cameron's house from school, and Cameron goes like, "Hi, anyone in? I'm home." And then you can hear how they're waiting to hear whether someone's in or not. No one's in. They go upstairs. They go into Cameron's room, close the door, and immediately start making out. And I was like, okay, alright, established. They're girlfriends. Okay, good to know. And they're sneaking behind everyone's back, just like everyone does when they're a teenager, right? It doesn't matter whether it's girl on girl, or boy on boy, or girl on boy. It doesn't matter, right? Everyone's sneaking behind the parents' backs because the parents don't want you to have sex. So that was quite interesting to see that is literally the first scene of the film. That it just starts like that. Boom, done, next. Or that's at least the first scene I remember. Maybe there was another one. And there are also, it's quite an explicit film as well. So there are a bunch of sex scenes in there, and I'm not saying that we're showing a lot, but they're really going for it. And that's one of the things that I mentioned earlier. They're really authentic. They look so authentic. And when Chloe did an interview, I think it was with the BBC, she mentioned that in the sex scenes, it was literally just the 2 girls having sex and the cinematographer, who was also a woman. So the director of the film and the cinematographer are both women. There was a big female crew on this project, apparently, which is also one of the reasons why I really want to support this film. But they usually, with sex scenes, if you've ever listened to an interview that an actor gives, it's usually very technical. It's almost like choreography in a dance. It's like, well, this is now I tilt my head like this, and now you lick here, and now I move my hand over here, and blah. It's really ridiculous. It's so technical that I mean, I never had to shoot a sex scene so far, but I find it really daunting to try to pretend to even be in the throes of passion while you're going like, and now I have to move my hand like this, and my arm, and my face, and my and that, oh, and now I have to go and whatever, right? It's very technical, and they didn't do that here. It was literally the director, I think it's Desiree Akavan, and I hope I'm not mixing that up with someone else. Hang on, does it say? Oh yeah, Desiree Akavan. Yeah, I got it right. God, I'm so proud of myself. She was literally talking to the two actresses and we were like, you know what you're doing, right? And they were like, we know what we're doing. And so the entire crew vanished, went somewhere else, and it was just the two actresses and the cinematographer, and they just went for it, and the cinematographer made sure she filmed it right. And I have to admit, after I didn't know that before I went to see the film, and I thought that the intimate scenes were really well shot, and they were intimate, and everything felt really authentic, and I believed every single fucking second of it. And I don't know anything about the other actress, but as far as I know, like I said, Chloe Grace Moretz, I don't think she's gay, but she's doing a really fucking convincing job. I was really, really surprised. Pleasantly surprised, because I like all of that stuff. Anything that happens in the film, it looks so real and grounded and authentic to me. I really liked that, and it wasn't for the male gaze, and it wasn't stylized or anything. It just felt so real. Like, this is actually two girls that are just, you know, exploring each other, and some of the dialogue options there as well, and just the way that it is shot, and the things that happen there. And it's quite interesting, the film intercuts between what is happening at the camp and the story of Cameron and Casey. It's kind of told in flashbacks, which I thought was quite powerful, but it could also be a kind of tiny bit confusing, because it's not like it's like color tinted or something. But I really liked what Akavan did there. Sometimes we just literally smash cut to why is Cameron and Casey, why are they making out all of a sudden? And then it cuts back to Cameron waking up in bed going like, wow, I just had a dream, or something like that. It always makes sense the way that it's cut together, and I really love the way that the narrative flows like that, even though it is, you could consider it choppy, considering how it's edited together, but it just flows so well. And the performances are strong, not just by Chloe, but by everybody, including the so-called villains who run the camp. And there's obviously, there are a bunch of trigger scenes that happen in there. Like there's self-mutilation, not that you see it, but it is talked about. And there's a bunch of other things that happen there that might potentially trigger some people. But I thought it was more of, that sounds weird, it's more of an emotional trigger. Like for me, it was an emotional ride. At first I thought I was going to be fine. And then in the second half of the film, there were a bunch of gut punches that I just didn't see coming, and I almost lost it. Like seriously, I really had to just almost stop breathing just so I wouldn't turn into a blubbering mess. It's a really powerful film with great performances, and given the current climate and the current political situation, especially in the United States, it's also a really important film. And I think everyone needs to go and watch it. Watch it. If you're gay, or if you know a gay person, you should go and watch this. If you're a woman, you need to go and watch this, because it has a female director, a female cinematographer, and a female lead. It's absolutely powerful cinema at its finest. Really, really loved this film. I was so surprised by it. I can't wait to go and see it again. I'm planning on seeing it again next week. I'm taking my mate to see it, because it's not been on his list, and I just told him about it a few hours ago, and he was like, fine, okay, we gotta make sure that I go and see that. And I was like, okay, cool, I'm gonna take you, because I can't wait to see it again. That's how great it is. It's a really, yeah, it's profound and powerful and beautiful and inspiring and tragic and horrible, but overall I thought it was a beautiful, positive film to watch, even as a gay person, or maybe especially as a gay person. I really, really love this film. It is in my top 10 of the year. This is one of the best films all year. not just because of the performance, but it's an important film to watch, whether you're gay, whether you're an ally, or even more important, if you're someone who doesn't understand LGBT people, who hates LGBT people. If you sit through this, I promise you, you will understand better. If you don't understand anything that we go through on a daily basis after watching this, then we really can't help you. This is a brilliant film by Desiree Akhavan. I hope that I get to work with her in future sometime. I really, really love this one. You can't go wrong watching this, but bring a box of tissues or a really long sleeve jumper or something, because you'll need it. Loved it. And on to the next one. American Animals. Now this is a very much talked about film in recent weeks. Because it's based on real life events. Well, of course, Miseducation of Cameron Post, as far as I know, is also based on real life events. But this one is a crime drama. And it's written and directed by Bart Layton, who is one of the directors who is potentially in the running for directing the new Bond 25, because Danny Boyle stepped down as director. Now, American Animals stars Evan Peters. If you don't know who that is, just watch American Horror Story, or you probably know him as Quicksilver from the X-Men movies. Barry Keoghan, Blake Jenner, Jared Abramson, and Ann Dowd. And anything Ann Dowd's in is kind of fantastic, isn't it? The film is based on a true story of a library heist. Yeah, a library heist that happened at Transylvania University in Lexington, Kentucky in 2004. And yes, Transylvania University is not made up, that actually exists. When I was watching the film, I was like, Transylvania University? What the fuck? Is everyone a vampire? Why is it called Transylvania University? What the flippin' heck? I haven't researched it, but I was like, what is up with the name? No idea. So overall, the film is about this heist. So one of the students, I think played by Barry Keoghan, you've seen him in Dunkirk, he goes to Transylvania University for whatever reason. He gets on a tour in the library, and the librarian Ann Dowd tells them, it's like, well, these are like first editions of, I can't remember, something Darwin, and then there's a first edition of some birds and other American animals that is apparently really fucking expensive. And given how expensive it is, and it's like millions and millions of dollars, that kind of expensive, right? And it doesn't really have a proper security system. All it has is a locked door and a librarian. So he's like, why don't we bloody steal these things? And then we're minted. That's the entire idea of the film. That's it. Well, not of the film, but that's the entire idea of the heist. So him and his friend, played by Evan Peters, they kind of get together and they go, okay, we're just going to steal these books. And they're trying to figure out how they can steal them. And this is where it kind of all falls down for me. Because I'm not going to give too much away. Like I say, I usually do not spoil anything here. But the end result is that you have 4 white boys who all go to university at apparently Transylvania University, or who know each other. I think they all go to the same university. And for whatever reason, they feel like their lives aren't special enough, or they're bored, or I don't know, they have a brain aneurysm. They all of a sudden think, I need all that money. I need to steal these books and get all that money. And then the weirdest quest ever happens, where they try to find, like, you need to find a fence, you need to find a buyer, and that leads to apparently some international travel, or does it? So like it really goes from one crazy thing to an even crazier thing to mega ridiculously abysmal crazy, where you're like, really? Like several times throughout the film, I was like, really? And all of they do all of this stuff. They're not the brightest you know, they're not the sharpest shits in the tool. The sharpest shits. The sharpest tool in the shed. The sharpest shits in the tool. They're not the sharpest tools in the shed. And they just go further and further and further, and it becomes more and more ludicrous until we finally get to the staged heist, right? But it's so ludicrous that it's actually laughable. Laugh out loud funny. Some of the shit that happens, that they do, the shit they talk about, the way they go about things is like, they're like clowns. It's absolutely ridiculous that they don't shoot themselves in the foot with like tasers and staplers and hell knows whatever else. They are some of the most idiotic people I have ever seen. And the main thing is like, the whole time I'm trying to understand what is their motivation. And I know that might be the actor in me. Is like, what's my motivation in this scene? I just didn't understand it. One of them seems to have a really rich background. I really didn't understand why he joined the other three guys to steal this. It's like, are you really that fucking bored with your life? You don't even need the money. You're just doing it for shits and giggles. And that's what the other people were doing it as well for. And I'm like, you're just four mega bored, privileged white boys who lacked any kind of brain capacity. That is what this film is. However, for the audience, I think it is absolutely entertaining. This is kind of like a more less physical and more dialogue and situational comic Jackass version than Jackass. Some of the, like I said, some of the stuff is absolutely ludicrous that happens in here. And one of the best things about the film, and this is why I think the director is really good at what he does, it's kind of based, he's a documentary filmmaker, and you can tell, because the scenarios that we see with Evan Peters, with the actors and everything, they're intercut with real life interviews of the real life people that the actors are portraying. And that is obviously really weird. So it feels like you're watching a documentary with interviews on this heist, and you get some really high profile, well, not really high profile, but you get some really decent actors to do the reenactments of the scenes that you want to show, that people are talking about. And to make it even more interesting for the audience is that these real life interviews, all four are being interviewed, plus the librarian, I think a bunch of other people as well. But the four guys seem to contradict each other in their real life interviews all the time. So you don't really know that what you're being told in these interviews is actually true. And sometimes they go like, well, this is how this scene played out. And then you see the reenactment with Evan Peters and everyone else. And then all of a sudden it's like, no. It wasn't at night, it was in day. And then all of a sudden you see the scene, instead of in the dark, it's in daylight. Or instead of in the swimming pool, we're in a car. Or stuff is changing around. So the directors clearly had some kind of idea to show like that you have, what is it called? You can't believe the narrator. Unreliable narrator, that's what it's called. And I think that's why the film works as a piece of entertainment. But at no time ever throughout the film do you actually feel for these guys. You don't want them to succeed. You just go like, I can't wait until I find the point in the story where they're being caught. Because they're so fucking stupid. And everything obviously goes to shit because stuff never goes according to plan, and they're not organized or clever enough to have a plan B or C or whatever. So it's absolutely hilarious and ridiculous, the shit that happens there. And you can just tell that the actors had a lot of fun with it. But I felt really, I almost felt bad for the real life people that are being depicted in this, because I'm not sure whether they were privy to the information that they're basically being made fun of. So it's, yeah, and there are bits later on where, I mean, it's not really a spoiler, they did have to go to prison. They did get caught, right? It's not a spoiler because this is like an historical fact. So it's just interesting to see that At first they're like, yeah, and we did this, and it was just like supposed to be some fun, and no one was supposed to get hurt, and blah blah blah. And then you see the end result, and the film is quite powerful in that regard, that a silly decision like that can impact your life like crazy. Any decision, any split-second decision you make every single day, it can impact your life for the rest of your life, which is crazy. But I like the idea with the unreliable narrator. There are also really funny bits where, because they don't know how to do a heist, so they research how to do a heist, and there's not really like a heists for dummies or something. So they watch heist films, like classic heist movies. And I thought that was absolutely hilarious. And they were just like, yeah, eating their popcorn and the Twizzlers and whatever. Oh God, I got such a hankering for Twizzlers just watching this film. I was like, this is not funny. But that was really cool. So the entire film was funny because they don't know what they're doing. But none of them are likable, which I thought was a really big deal to me. And the biggest thing was in the film about group mentality, because there's 4 of them. And every now and then there is one who goes like, you know what, I'm out. I can't do this. This is the one thing. This is the one line I'm not going to cross. And then the other people get him back in. So it's quite interesting psychologically as well, the whole thing about group mentality. Because, yeah, there are several instances where several of the characters were like, I'm not doing this, I'm not doing that, I'm out now, and blah, blah, blah. So it was kind of interesting to see. One of the things that I didn't quite understand, even at the end, was the stuff that we were seeing. Who was it actually based on? Because we have the unreliable narrator in everybody. So we're like, are we just putting this all together from what everyone said? Or is this just one person's account of how stuff happened? That's not really been depicted. So that was a bit weird. Overall, I had fun with the movie. But I really hated the characters. I hated the protagonists. I thought the actors did a really good job. But overall, I just wanted these guys to fucking fall on their fat asses and their faces and just go to jail. You know, they're horrible. They have no motivation to do what they're doing. Other than they're being bored. They're not feeling special enough. Well, hopefully in prison you felt special enough. So it was just like, I don't give a shit. It's like watching a multi-millionaire robbing a bank. Why would I care? He doesn't need the money. He's just doing it for shits and giggles. It's not, there's nothing at stake. And I felt the same here. There's nothing at stake. Those guys are fucking up their lives, but they fully well know what they're doing. You know, as in like, you know you're committing a crime. Because you are bored. So I had a huge problem in that regard. But overall, it is an entertaining film. But the protagonists are just so unlikable. You want the protagonists to fail, which is interesting. Because that is usually something that would make a film not work. But here it does, which is kind of fun. But I think it's because half of it is pretty much a documentary. So there you go. I enjoyed it, but I felt like an external viewer, just like when I wasn't emotionally engaged at all. I was just watching a train wreck from start to finish. That's what the movie is. And speaking of train wrecks, Predator. I'm a huge fan of the original Predator with Arnold Schwarzenegger. Everything's quite orange. Huh, okay, I'm going to be running over. I really tried to get this in on time. Fuck, I must have talked so much about Miseducation of Cameron Post. Quick synopsis. We have a group of mercenaries here, played by Boyd Holbrook, Trevante Rhodes, Jacob Tremblay is not a mercenary, but Keegan-Michael Key, Olivia Munn, she's amazing, Thomas Jane, Alfie Allen, and Sterling K. Brown. And we have the group of mercenaries who try to protect a small town from an invading group of predators. Now, that's not entirely accurate. What happens is we start in space, a ship is fleeing from some other ships, crash lands on Earth, the Predator comes out, not very happy. So then all of a sudden he crashes into Boyd Holbrook's scenario. He's like a merc here. He's a sniper with the US Rangers or something. he's the only one who survives the encounter with the Predator. He takes the Predator's helmet and a gauntlet, and because he knows that he will need some evidence, because otherwise no one's going to believe that a space alien just crash landed on Earth, he sends it home to his family, and Jacob Tremblay plays his son, and Yvonne Strahovski plays his wife. And then there's like a bunch of other shit happening, how he ends up with all these other mercenaries, because basically Sterling K. Brown, who is kind of like the human version of the villain, wants to silence everyone who's ever seen an alien and who's not on his team, because he wants to get all the gear, all the ships, all the weapons, you know, he's like, all the alien shit is mine. And I think Sterling K. Brown does a really good job as the human villain, so to speak. He's very charismatic and captivating, but he's such an ruthless asshole. I absolutely loved it. Because so far he's usually played very likable characters. First time ever that I've seen him where he doesn't play a likable character, so that was quite interesting. We also have Olivia Munn, who I was very surprised by. She plays a scientist. I think she's like a professor or something at some kind of university. And Sterling K. Brown's men rock up and basically says, like, we've got something you need to have a look at. And they've got some kind of understanding. So she leaves her dog behind with someone and just goes into some underground laboratory where she finds all these alien artifacts. And she's like, wow, this is alien stuff. And they're like, yeah, you should have a look at this. It's like, bam, we actually have an alien on the slab. And there's a predator lying there, right? And then, as is the usual funfare and fanfare with films like that, you know, the thing is not sedated enough and gets loose, and then all hell breaks loose. And that's when the film really surprised me, because I thought Olivia Munn was just going to play the scientist with some explanatory dialogue here and some other bullshit there, you know. But all of a sudden she turns into some badass Sarah Connor soldier warrior type. And I was like, where did that come from? Nowhere ever in the film do they say that Olivia Munn has some kind of military training or whatever it is. She's the only one that basically runs after this predator that has killed every single fucker in this underground facility, minus a bunch of people. She just runs after him with a tranq gun, trying to just shoot him so that he can't go and hurt anyone. And she just keeps pace with the predator. And she doesn't seem to have any fear or whatever it is. She just runs after him as if it's nothing. And I was like, where did you come from? I didn't think that was like, did they decide like we need a really powerful, strong female lead character? I don't care what it was. She was kind of awesome and badass. She was a bit too awesome and badass because it was unbelievable how amazingly awesome and badass she was. But that's, I think, why I really enjoyed this movie. Because it's fun. It's stupid, fun action entertainment. With a woman character amongst, like, what, 5 male characters? And she easily holds her own. She's written to hold her own. Not that the script is really well written or that the character descriptions are really well... The characters have a lot of depth. That's unfortunately not what's going on here. But there's funny and zingy and sharp dialogue between all the characters, and everyone holds their own, some a bit more than others. Thomas Jane is in this as well, and he plays someone who has a bit of a Tourette's, which is played for laughs, which I don't necessarily agree with. What he did with it was quite good and believable, and some of it was kind of funny, but others was like, you can tell that he's a capable character despite his Tourette's, which was interesting. It's almost like The Rock in Skyscraper. He's an amputee, but he can take care of shit. You know, it doesn't mean anything. So the ensemble cast works really well. What was the lead guy's name? Boyd Holbrook. Just bit of a white bread, really. Looks like one of many. Not a very memorable character, but most of them were quite quirky characters. It's usually in films like this that the side characters are a lot more interesting than the actual lead character, and I thought that was definitely the case here. Olivia Munn, I think, plays a character called Casey, if I'm not mistaken. She was really interesting. Boyd Holbrook, not as much. He's just a very generic soldier type person. the guy who played Gaylord, what's it? Trevante Rhodes plays a guy called Gaylord something. All I remember is Gaylord, and he was like, he's never called Gaylord because he doesn't like that name. But I can't remember, what was it, Nevada? Something like that. It really doesn't even matter, because as is the thing with these kinds of films, you know, don't get too attached to anyone. There's not a lot of depth for the characters. They're all potentially interesting. There's potential for interesting characters and in-depth characters there. And you have decent actors to portray them. Alfie Allen from Game of Thrones is in this as well, and he's really wasted, as is Yvonne Strahovski as the wife of the main lead. Felt really bad, and Jacob Tremblay's mum. But even she has like a scene or two where she's like, she could probably hold her own against some badass agents. You know, she never feels like the weak wife. You know, she holds her own, which is quite cool. The problem with the film, the first act's interesting, sets everything up. Second act, still decent. Third act, everything goes to shambles. Everything falls apart and it's just a fucking horrendous, generic mess. Which is unfortunate because the film could have been really great. Final act lets everything down. The story, the characters. Characters are being killed off faster than you can even remember their names. And I clearly can't remember their names. It's like, what's going on? What? No emotional payoff whatsoever. Not that you really got emotionally attached to them in the first place, because the movie just doesn't take the time to do that. There are two highlights in this film. Well, three, sort of. Jacob Tremblay plays McKenna's son, Rory. So McKenna is the main lead, right? And he has some kind of autism or something, which enables him to decode languages really quickly. So he manages to read the Predator language, which is why he's really important later on in the film. And he, as always, he gives a really nuanced performance. He pretty much outshines everyone, as does Sterling K. Brown. He proves himself as yet another, like, as a solid performer. You know, I really like seeing this guy. The first time I've seen him was in This Is Us, the TV show that is like racking up Emmys, and he's an Emmy winner from that. And he's been in a bunch of movies. The last one I've seen, I think, was Hotel Artemis. He's really, really good, and he's, again, really solid. But for the first time ever, he's playing an asshole. He's playing a charming but ruthless operative, and he's kind of like, he's leading the entire human forces that are up against the mercs, that are trying to get the Predator and his technology. But he's got some awesome zingers and badass moments, and every now and then he has a moment where he just laughs in like the weirdest way, and it's funny, but it's also really horrendous at the same time. It's just amazing. He was really captivating as the villain, or the villainous counterpart. He didn't have a lot of depth because the script didn't really give him a lot of depth, but what he was given, he took it, ran with it, and you can just tell that he had a lot of fun with it, and that translates on screen. And the other person that had a lot of fun with it is Olivia Munn. She clearly had a lot of fun as Casey, because she probably signed up. I think the IMDb synopsis is calling her a disgruntled science teacher. It's like, that's not all she is. She's really badass. She really rises to the occasion. And there are things where you're like, okay, now she's going to be sidelined. No, she's coming back and she's still with it. Oh no, now this is happening. It's like, what? There's some amazing scenes happening when she runs into the mercs, because there's like 5 mercs, I think, 5 or 6. I think so. And she's the only woman, and they kind of save her. But there's a really great scene where she shoots herself with the trank gun by accident. And obviously it's supposed to trank a predator. It will trank the fuck out of her, right? And when she wakes up, it's just one of those wake-ups where it's like, me as a woman, I'm like, I'd be freaking the fuck out. And the way that she does it, it's one of the most amazing scenes in the entire film. I really love that. You will know exactly what I mean. It's like when she wakes up and she kind of gets introduced to the loony squad, to the loony bins. Absolutely brilliant. Really loved her portrayal. And obviously, I think last week I reported that Olivia Munn had this scene with the sexual predator that was cut from the film. And, you know, props to you, lady. Seriously. I thought you did a really good job. Olivia Munn was really good in this film. I enjoyed all the stuff that she did there. Everyone was having a lot of fun with it. There are bits in this film that make absolutely zero sense. It's almost like they were supposed to lead into something that then didn't lead to anything, which is really, really annoying. The original Predator was a horror action film. This one, there's no horror in this. There's just action. Because the Predator is pretty much immediately shown. You see him camouflage and stuff, but it's pretty much just a fucking gunfight. You know, there's no ingenuity by the heroes that, you know, like Schwarzenegger, who had to put the mud around him and stuff. None of this. There's a scene that is kind of reminiscent of that. There's a scene where Olivia Munn is naked in... Don't worry, boys, you can't see anything. Or girls. Like, literally, you can't see anything. But she's naked in the decontamination chamber, and the Predator stares right at her and can't see her, and it's like, why can't he see me? Because I'm in the decontamination chamber, or because I'm naked, or what is it? It's like, does the Predator helmet have some kind of like, oh, she's naked, we're gonna filter that out? I have no idea, but it's never spoken of again. I think she mentions it in the film later on, but no one ever does anything with it. So it feels like that was an idea in the script that no one took and ran with it. They just abandoned it, but they still wanted to show her naked in the decontamination chamber. I have no idea. It was just really, really weird. Same for some reveals at the end. There's something that is in an escape pod. It's been alluded to in the first act, in the second act. And then obviously throughout the entire film you want to know what's in the bloody escape pod. And you do find out what's in the escape pod, and I'm not going to spoil it for you. But it is very anticlimactic and very disappointing and just so bad. Like, the entire third act is just not very good, but that resolution at the end is just so unsatisfying and bad. I was like, what the fuck? It's like you stab me with a knife in the back, and then now you're just really slowly twisting and turning it and just making it even worse. So overall, I enjoyed the film. The ending is shit. But I think you're still going to have some fun. It's not as good as the original Predator film, which I mean, it's a classic for a reason, right? The original Predator was more like the original Alien. It was more of a horror movie than just like, shoot all the guns we have at this thing and sooner or later we're going to win. It was cleverer than that. This one's just not very clever. I loved the character interactions, though. I loved a lot of the really zingy dialogue. I thought that was a lot of fun. There's a lot of situational comedy in there that I really enjoyed, that worked really well for me. So overall I enjoyed it, but I have to admit my expectations for this film were really, really low because my mate had told me it was not very good. I did enjoy it, and I think you can easily go to the cinema to go and see it, but I have an unlimited card, so for me it doesn't cost extra. I'm not sure if I would fork out 10-15 quid to go and see this, to be quite honest. So yeah, bit hit and miss. It just depends. If you're really into Predator, I think you should probably watch it. It's quite entertaining, but overall, the end does feel like a letdown. And also, don't worry, you don't have to stay to the end of the credits. There's nothing there, okay? So, this is it. I've run over again. I really need to try to be a bit more concise. Just a quick overview. New on DVD and Blu-ray on the 17th. We have the Deadpool 2 super duper mega awesome motherfucker super single mega cut coming out. Whatever it's called. I actually don't know what it's called. Super duper something cut. I'm gonna buy it. I can't wait. That is coming out. Obviously, I'm a huge fan of Deadpool 2. Not of the first one, but of the second one. Also out is On Chesapeake Beach, which is what I missed in the cinema, so I can make up for that there. Life of the Party is out, which is a Melissa McCarthy film. Considering that Happy Time Murders is really shit, if you want to watch a Melissa McCarthy film and you already seen Spy and now I can't think of anything else. Life of the Party was quite decent. It's not great, but you can easily watch it, especially if it turns up on video on demand or something. That'd be perfect. There's a film called Apostasy and Breaking In are coming out as well. I haven't personally seen these ones because I missed them in the cinema. But I have them on my must-see list for a reason. So there you go. I'm just mentioning that they're coming out next week. New on Netflix UK, Film Stars Don't Die in Liverpool. Is also a film I think came out last year. Limited release. I missed it in the cinema, so I'm going to check it out on Netflix UK. And don't forget to go to the cinema this weekend. New in cinemas, of course, my movie of the week, The Miseducation of Cameron Post. American Animals and Predator is new in cinemas. Crazy Rich Asians is now being released tomorrow. General wide release. If you want to know my thoughts on Crazy Rich Asians, go back to the previous week. I was talking about it then. I really, really like this film. Crazy Rich Asians is a lot of fun. If you want to watch a comedy that is just adorable and beautiful and hilarious and cute, go and watch Crazy Rich Asians. Also out in the cinema, King of Thieves, which is about a heist, I think, by some old chaps here in the UK, starring Michael Caine. I haven't seen it yet. I don't know if it's any good, but it looks interesting. So American Animals, The Miseducation of Cameron Post, you gotta go and watch that. Predator and Crazy Rich Asians. Have fun at the cinema. I will see you guys again next Thursday. Over and out.